never gave me an answer. Am I the only one? I didn't know it was over. Take care of you. I didn't know it was over. Take care of you. Take care of you. I wrote you on and on. You never gave me an answer. Am I the only one? I didn't know it was over. Take care of you. Take care of you. Take care of you.
All right. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Today we have a very special guest joining us on our live stream, and I will introduce him. But before that, guys, give me a resounding yes in the chat if you can hear us properly, because we want to make sure that you're hearing us loud, you're hearing us proud, and you're going to learn everything that we have to share today, because we have someone that is here to share his wealth of experience as we talk about relationships. And let's take a mic check from your side as well. Abby, can you say a hello? Can you give us a hello?
Hello, everyone.
Amazing, amazing. Well, wonderful. So, Abby, first of all, let's give everybody an understanding of who you are and why you're here. Who are you, Abby? Tell me a bit about yourself, and tell me, I guess, what is your interest for coming on today to join us on our wonderful live stream?
Conrad, thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute privilege, and I'm excited to be here. I'm Abhi. I'm from India, have had the opportunity to travel extensively across the globe and been in Singapore for last 3 years. Work-wise, I lead a strategy function in Google. And on the personal side, I just came out of a extremely toxic relationship. So when I met Conrad and he mentioned this idea of a relationship journal, it immediately resonated with me. And I mean, I thought, how could my life be different if I had something like this, right? And let me just explain what I took out of this concept, which you explained, Conrad. There's so many people today who are not happy in their relationships, right? They don't seem to be making progress. They continuously make mistakes. They move from one bad relationship to another, not really knowing what's the thing they're looking for in the next one. So it's a cycle, right? You feel lonely, you date, you commit, you find love, and maybe you break up, and then you start again, right? So the question was really, if we can share our learning and reflection and somehow find meaning and give people a compass so that they can converge faster to whosoever their ideal match is, I think the world will be a happier and a better place. And then, that will be uplifting for everybody.
Of
So
course.
I feel inspired, and I'm just here to contribute in building something which helps people. Thank you for having
Amazing,
me.
Abby. No, thank you for being here. And I guess I want to also give some more background to everybody watching the stream. As you all know, we started a co-living house in Singapore called the Family Without Borders. And the whole idea of this house is to bring together like-minded people like we have in the community, but bring them together into a space of co-creation and cooperation, or collaboration rather, and help just really build things together that will derive huge value for the world, and ideally based on needs that we have in our own personal war, our weekly war, our monthly war, and even wars that span many years, right? As Abby was kind of alluding to. So definitely it's interesting in the fact that we end up coming together and innovating on ideas that somehow we all face the problem of, right? That's the whole reason why the World Bosses Initiative was started in the community, is because we realized after we share our problems with each other, after we share the things that we're struggling with in our day-to-day lives, we're like, oh my gosh, I faced that too, right? And we had the same feeling, didn't we, Abby? You started talking about your history, your how did you deal with relationships, how did you try to find a meaningful relationship in your life. I shared my experiences, and we kind of share that bond, right? And I think that's where we're coming at with this problem here, is we're saying, well, if people are kind of find themselves falling into the same repetitive, toxic relationships, right, whatever you want to call them, then we essentially are not learning anything new. We're not being intentional, right? Be intentional is a core facet here that we share. We're not being intentional about our next relationship. So how can we change that? And again, thank you, Abby, for being here. I'm so excited to have a conversation, a dialogue with you about this, because I think you just have so much to share. I'm so happy to have you here, and so happy to have you also in the house. We're housemates now. So we've been having such meaningful conversations every day, and I really want to highlight that. That's been amazing for our growth together, and yeah, just excited to have this conversation with the whole community as well. So let's get started, and let's talk a bit about the problem. So as you can see, we have a very cute thumbnail up here. we're debating if we should put like our faces on it, but I think the cute Cupid baby is probably the best thing we want.
Tutor, yeah.
Oh, by the way, Lindsay says hi. Lindsay says hi. Amazing. Yeah, so what is the problem, right? And I think Abby kind of mentioned it just a little bit, but we can describe it as well. Maybe Abby, if you want to read it out, and if you want to add anything to what we've written here already, please do. Yeah.
Yeah, so this makes a lot of sense. Like, people often find themselves in the stuck loop of unsatisfied and unsatisfactory relationships, and they're constantly wondering, why do I keep ending here all the time? In spite of making in a lot of effort, opening up their hearts, being vulnerable, putting in the energy, and then when they finally take a decision to move away from it, many a times they overcorrect, and many a times they're trying to heal from all the suffering they went through. That may or may not push them intentionally towards the end goal. And I think the biggest thing which stuck with me, Conrad, was no matter who we are, we all biased. We all have our rose-tinted glasses, right? So when you're with somebody, you look at all their positives, anything which doesn't really sit well, you kind of ignore that data, but that's a fact, right? So, how do we ensure that we change that both when you are in the relationship and definitely, at the ending juncture, so that next time, you are more intentional and you are better, and the likelihood of success is higher than before.
Of course, Abby. And I gotta ask, like, so you mentioned a few keywords there that I kind of want to focus on for a second. You say that we kind of have rose-colored glasses when we're in a relationship. We tend to ignore, the negative components, or perhaps even think about like, oh, I can change them, perhaps, right? This is a negative in the short term, and perhaps long term, this can be different. Can you reflect on that with me for a second? Like, how would you perceive that statement I just shared? Is that what causes that problem specifically to happen?
Oh, I have so many thoughts, and so many memories. So let me pick one or two. So I think you normalize the behavior. So your reality is what your mind projects out to be, right? So you project that you want to be in a loving relationship with your partner. So anything they are doing for you, like somebody made breakfast for you, like bread and eggs and avocado, amazing. They definitely love you, and you want to feel loved and stay in that zone. Imagine half an hour later, for some reason, they lost their cool and they shouted at you for something or banged the door. You're like, no, they're upset. Something bad is going on in their, professional lives, or some friend said something they don't like. So it's okay. I'll ignore the data point, right? I'll just focus on the lovely breakfast I had. The issue with this is you are not taking a holistic view of everything which happened. The question is your value system something which allows you to be shouted at? Is it okay or is it not okay? Is respect a core thing you look for? So in my mind, we and everybody out there looks for confirmation bias, and they'll only pick up information based on what they were trying to prove as right. But the other data also is there, and it's building upon time, right? Like, so it's not going anywhere. So the thought which I struggled with for a long time, almost 5 years, is I ignored all the other warning signs. I had extreme amount of self-belief and self-assurance that I can solve any problem. Like, if I solve global problems in a good company, and like really complex problems, I can help, support, evolve my partner and make them see things differently. But my learning is nobody changes inherently. With growth mindset, they can if they invest their own energy, but you cannot change anybody. It has to come from them, right? And if even if you have pointed out and you don't see that progress, then the likelihood is that no matter what you do, it's going to stay the same. And you need to figure out if that's okay with you or not. And if not, then you need to decide what you got to do.
That makes sense. And I think, I just saw Alyssa's comment there, and I really want to comment on that. But give me a second, Alyssa. That's very interesting. I'm going to comment on that real fast. But I also do want to add, it's like, I feel like when you might have also some kind of bias towards wanting to prove that you're right. Like, I wasn't wrong in picking this person to settle down with, right? I picked them for a reason. I'm of a certain caliber. They're of a certain caliber. There's no way they can be, nothing less than what I expected them to be, which I think is part of the problem too. We're not here playing the blame game on anybody, right? It's more about intentional self-reflection in the terms of what expectations did I have coming into this, and how have I deluded myself to thinking otherwise. So
true. It's true. I have a thought. Let me just react. Like, I have such a important thought to share with you. I think the whole concept of sunk cost, first of all, right?
Yes.
You have invested years in getting to know somebody. You have shared experiences. you have built a life together. You want to continue to build that life further. You have a common social circle, right? You have common friends in front of whom you smile and you pretend to be happy, right? Or you're actually happy, like God knows, right?
God
But the
forbid everybody
reality
be
is,
happy.
yes. But the reality is the way your friends perceive you is, oh my God, look at that couple. Like they are so cute together, right? So the external image with your social circle on your Instagram feed and everywhere projects this perfect happiness. And behind the scene is all this data which exists with you and you are ignoring it, or you are, just parking it somewhere. And when you want to get out of there, many things will catch up and inhibit it, right? One, the amount of shared experience, investment, the fear that your networks, like social networks, what will the friends think? Will they favor you or the other person? And then your fear of loss. It's the sense of loss that, okay, if I really wind up, is the grass really greener on the other side, or will I end up in a crappier spot, right? Or will I just be lonely and not find anybody at all? So that averseness is also something which stops you from doing what's right when you are at spot one, right? And they need to try to explain to other people that if it was so bad, why did you take this decision in the first place? We told you so, or anything else, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I completely identify with that, Abby. I think there's a lot to be said about our own inclinations to be right. And that definitely ties in with the whole sunk cost fallacy, where if you've already invested the time, and again, if you look at realistically how many years of your life you have, how many meaningful relationships can you get into, it becomes a point where when do I settle and when do I make do, and how can I change? And it stops becoming more, it's like if you have an old car, right? And this might not be the perfect analogy, but if you have an old car and you put your high school years into it, your early adult years, and you've been fixing it up as you go, you have the choice to buy a brand new car, right? But you're like, no, I already invested all my feelings. This car knows exactly what I like.
This is my car. Like,
This is
it's
my
good or
car.
bad, it's mine.
I put so much time and effort into it. People already know this car by now. This is like my calling card. A lot of. This is a funny analogy. I don't know where it's going, but like the whole idea is that you kind of already have adopted this as part of your identity, and it's very hard for you to change. And just to comment on Alyssa's point really quickly, again, I'm not saying that trying to forget about a relationship and moving on is a bad thing, right? You need time to grieve. I'm not telling you to immediately be like, relive every bad moment in there and then feel depressed and then be upset. No, obviously not. That's crude. That's very upsetting and not respectful at all. What I am saying, however, is when you do have the mental capability to look back and see it from a very objective point of view, how much can you take away from the relationship, right? And whether it be an extremely happy one and ended amicably, or whether it be a very toxic one and ended horribly, how can you put yourself in the situation where you can now actually learn from that experience so that you don't end up overcorrecting because you only have a vague memory of what you didn't like about the previous relationship? Like, I've had so many examples of where I've been talking to friends and they're like, oh, my last relationship, they were like this, so therefore I'm going to find a guy or a girl that's like that. And I'm like, that's like an extreme. You're going from one end to the other. How do you know that's what you want, right? You're like, it's a seesaw. You're going from one extreme to another. And I don't think you'll be happier. At least that's, the gut reaction I have. And of course, I might be wrong, and I am wrong many times. But I just think that there might be a solution here that Abby and I will talk about that will help you look back into these relationships, to help you reflect, to help you see what can be learned and what should be learned from an experience like that. So Abby, let's talk about the solution. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to open this up. Could you read that for me? And I think you might have more stuff to add here. So let's start talking about the what's and then get into the how.
Wonderful. So I think we had a lot of discussions on this, right, over last few weeks, and our understanding is that there are not a lot of people trying to solve this problem because it's not really commercially driven. Our intent is to increase people's happiness and ensure that over a long period of time, they find what they want in their lives, in their relationships. And business models and the way you value companies many a times will not take that long horizon where your revenues are unclear. So the the solution in our mind was create a system which over time helps you meaningfully track and reflect what's going on in your relationships, in your experiences, both the positives as well as things which you may not appreciate as much, right? And that would, over time help you be aware of what do you like what would you want day in day out, and how would you want to build your life. And it's okay for it to change, but it's important for you to know because our minds are fleeting, right? Your awareness goes wherever your attention goes, and then you forget about everything else. But those things are important for you. So if we can create a simple system which can track some of these things, it's not a journal which you're written down and just getting dusted in one corner of your room. It's something which is accessible to you. You input your information, and we have an intelligent system on top of it to just give you some very, very personal insights. It feels like you like this. It feels like you did not like this. Why did you not like this? What does it mean? Does it mean you need to do something differently? Does it mean you need to test something differently? And what are you going to do about this going forward, and how are you going to perceive this over time? So very, very simple system, but it's the understanding of what is your value system, what's your belief, what good looks like for you, what brings you joy, right? I mean, we are here for a journey, right? We are here to be living our lives, to feel alive, to feel respected, loved, admired, smiled at, right? While we are living, and we would want to create an environment which enables that. And any data which we are getting, which helps us move in that direction positively or not so much, we should reflect on that very, very consciously, and then try to build it. And this is a very simple solution which we believe is going to give you the right prompts at the right time, and will keep a record for you in a very, very safe way, so that you take meaningful, intentional decisions and actions over your lifetime. And hopefully we would see great outcome from this, like people knowing that we moved on from one relationship to another relationship, but we knew exactly why we did it, right? And what was I going to look out for. And Conrad, if you want, I can give you my own example of how I took the decision and how I'm trying to apply it. I've not applied it yet, but
Of course, no, we can get into that for sure. And before we do though, I've seen some really meaningful discussion in the chat, so I want to just bring that up because I like that a lot. And first, again, Alyssa, you've been very vocal about wanting to find a balance. I think everything is balanced, right? The whole world is balanced. Again, funny is like Thanos, snapping his finger, balance. The Avengers and all that. But the whole idea is that I think there's a spectrum. I think you are a person that definitely is self-critical and analyzes a lot, and I think that's a very good trait in you. And I think for yourself then, that's why you're leaning towards the direction of saying, hey, I already reflect so much, I need to stop reflecting. That's great. I have no qualms about that. But I might suggest that where this system will be helpful for you is helping you streamline where you're going to reflect. Like I myself am someone that I guess you can say is very anxious, at least in the past. I worry a lot about what people say. I worry a lot about what people feel, how they feel in relation to me, in relation to others. I that sounds like Thanos, you just messed up. Yeah, that's right. Thanos did mess it up. He didn't bounce anything. But yes, so the funny thing here, I guess, is that even for people that overanalyze we're trying to create a structure where you can pinpoint exactly where you should analyze and where you should focus on and care about. And again, if you're someone that keeps a lot of things in their memory anyway, you don't have to think about it all the time. But in my opinion, and just again, my own way, my own opinion, it might be useful for you to determine the categories of where you're going to spend your focus, right? And again, it's about me intention to then reflect on the things that need to be reflected, and then all the other 99.9% of things that you're worrying about that maybe doesn't need to be worried about or reflected on don't need to be, right? So that's my comment on that, Alyssa. And for Shukri, I think definitely Shukri, writing the important things about like, hey, their interests, your interests, what you liked about, your interactions with them. Those are all things that need to be captured down. And we're going to talk about that. Abby and I are going to share, what are the properties perhaps that we might want to maintain and keep track of that's going to make this system more meaningful. At least you can start categorizing, these relationships, I cared about this a lot. Was it because of me? Was it because of them? What happened? And I think also for Lindsay, I love that idea, the concept of outsourcing some needs. So like be like, okay, well, this relationship gave me these kind of needs, and my happiness kind of depends on these 10 needs. And if they, if some fulfill like 4 out of 5, then what happens after that? I think that's actually a good thing for happiness in general, right? You should figure out what makes you happy. You should figure out how you can be happy, right? And then you figure out where you can get those sources of happiness from. Thank you for those points, and keep throwing them in. I want to hear all about your stories, how you identify with the problem statement here, because this is a solution we're going to build together. It's not something that hopefully doesn't just work for me and Abby, right? Hopefully it works for me, Abby, you, your family, your friends, and everybody in the world, because we think this is a global issue, and we think that there's something that could be said about everybody reflecting more intentionally. So let's talk about a bit here. I mentioned
Can I add something? Can I add something to
please,
that?
Abby. Yes.
So I wanted to add to what you said to both Elise
Alyssa,
and
yeah.
Eliza. So Eliza as well as Lindsay. So on Eliza, I think there's nobody asking us to do this at a certain frequency, and not every day is the same, right? Like some days have more vital impact on your life journey than the others. I think this is for you, which means if there's something significant which happens in your life, it would be vital that at some point you take a pause, you structure your thoughts, and you reflect upon it. Because it is said, unless and until the waters calm down, you can't see the surface of the ocean, right? When emotions come in, you can't think rationally. You need to create that space that once you have calmed down, you objectively reflect and document. And the frequency could be once in a month, once in 2 months, once in 6 months, whatever works for you. But you need to find and create the space to really reflect and be self-aware of what happened and how you feel about it. And I mean, it's that premise that if we do that, it will be super helpful. And honestly, I have gone and read my diary from college, which is 15 years ago. And it's so insightful, it's so insightful of what I felt and what guidance it gave me. And I'm like, oh my God, I was profound then. Why did I make the mistake again? Like, why didn't I learn?
I was a smarter man.
Exactly.
And actually, so, I want to cut in quickly, and I want to say, like, that's actually the whole reason why we build systems in a tool like Notion, right? Or any tool, right? That's digitally based, is because in the past, we used to write down all our reflection, introspection, and, musings about life, but all in pen and paper. And the issue is that I'm not going to go back to look at my journals to find something very specific, to find my exact reminiscing on relationships, on love, on friendships, whatever. That's not something I'm going to do because I just can't find that information easily. So what I will do instead is I will go and I will now have a system and I can search on it, right? Again, the data is findable, it's categorizable, it's searchable. All these things make it so easy for me to to remember the things I've told myself. And again, these are not even words that other people are saying. I mean, and people have enough trouble remembering that, right? Someone gives you advice, you're like, yeah, whatever, right? And you move on. But this is your own advice. This is you from the past. Right? And you're not willing to listen, or you can't even be bothered to listen. I think that's a bit, a shame. It's a shame, right? And how can we bring that information out so we actually get to listen to ourselves? Abby?
Can I say something, Conrad? I think some words came to me which I think are profound. Okay. It's your past speaking to your future.
It's true. It is true. Yes. 100%.
And we need to respect our past, give it the attention it deserves. It's us, right, who felt that way. You can't ignore yourself, right, because it was you.
That's right.
I think this is important. This is so important, and I love what you're doing and how you've thought about it, Conrad. And I think that is the issue. We don't have access to our own past, and we had in those books, but I mean, we all needed immediate access. We can't just go and then figure out which page what we wrote, and we have not classified it or indexed it in a way where we can access it. So we need to make it easy for us to listen to ourselves.
Makes a lot of sense. Right.
Okay.
So let's talk about how. Right. We've talked a lot about the problem. We've talked about what the solution could be like, our perfect solution in our perfect dream little world. Let's get down to the ground and let's say, how does this system work? Cool. So the how for me, I think, is you need a way, a database to keep track of your relationship. Database to keep track of your relationships and important points about the experience, not the situation, the experience. We would have meaningful prompts to help you understand and reflect more about the relationship. So I'm thinking that there will be a template, that will be like, when we say this is a potential relationship partner, immediately the whole system's like, okay, we're reconfiguring. It's not just a normal friendship. This is a potential life partner. How do we reconfigure everything and ask the right questions so that you don't get blindsided by yourself, right? And usually we are our worst enemy. And then finally, create filters on properties to then find the insights that we have stored from past relationships to help us reflect or help us be intentional about new ones, right? So
yes, and also, can I add something, Conrad?
Please.
I mean, it's also not really about changing the relationship. It's not about saying your current relationship is crap and you need to move on to the next one. I mean, can we do something to make your current relationship better? And let me give you an example. It just came to me now. Okay, imagine somebody bought you a dress, right? And you're extremely happy about it, and you go and you document this in journal. Immediately, the journal throws out, oh, you have been given a dress like three times before over the last 2 years. And you suddenly go back and say, oh my God, like I have been constantly treated nice. I have not taken the time or put in the energy to do anything for my partner. So does it make sense that I should also do something? And that will just make things more beautiful. So either way, is it a positive confirmation or a negative confirmation? Your system will tell you you're feeling like this now, but you have felt similarly before. And this is the action for you, which could be a positive action, it could be a reciprocal action, etc.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So basically, using feelings as the key, right? In all of this, using feelings as the key that says, hey, this interaction with this person right now in front of me is making me feel a certain way. And how have I felt this way before? And, how does that then relate to, like, have I matured, right? Or have I become more immature? What has changed in my life? Again, self-reflecting before reflecting on others. But then how does their approach to the experience that we're having together, how does that change my feelings about it as well? So I think that's nice. Feelings as the key property. Okay. Really cool. I also wanted to add one thing too, because I talked about it up here and I don't think I had a chance to share enough about it. I wanted to talk about why I'm talking about, like, why does it have to be easily shareable with others? this comes from my own personal experience. My friends like to come to me for all sorts of different advice, and a lot of it which I'm not qualified to give, being very honest, but they come to me nonetheless. And in the scope of relationships, what I found is that, you know, they tell me a very biased story depending on how they're immediately feeling. Like if they just had a bad date, or if they just had like a bad breakup, or if they just even had a happy date, the story they tell about the person, I can be like, is that the same person you told me about a week ago? Because this is not the same person I'm hearing, right? The issue of that is, how can I, as a third party, give you an objective truth about the situation, right? One that you're willing to listen to and hear and learn from. How can I give you that understanding? How can I have that understanding, then give you something appropriate in response, if you're not even able to give me a proper rendition of what happened? So my feeling on this is, well, if you are able to then use meaningful prompts to distill down to the first principles, the fundamental building blocks of what's making this relationship work for you, then I can use that core base motivation, like your true why of why you want to be in that relationship, what you wanted to achieve in that relationship, and then how it's going. Then I can give you more context. I have more context and give you more feedback based on what I know you want to get out of this relationship. Then I can give you the better feedback on how you can get there. I think that's something that's really missing, because, again, like your motivation changes every single week if you don't keep track of it, right? You're like, oh, this week, he was a jerk, so therefore, I that's not what I want. But next week, he's a jerk, but jerk to other people, not to me, so I'm okay with it. Like, that's a weird, random example, but like, your mind, like Abby was sharing, comes up with weird justifications for a lot of the shit you put yourself through. So I think that's something that hopefully this kind of system would be able to help you understand. And then, if not having an objective view for yourself, but also for others as well. Amazing. Okay, so Abby, any additional comments on how this is built? If not, I'm going to get straight into building.
I think the only comment is there is a lot of thought and intentionality which needs to go in figuring out how do we classify each experience, what does it mean for people, and how does it become actionable and meaningful for them to take that into consideration. I love your point on using and being able to share this data with some people we really trust, because it's not only about what you have written here, it's about you as a person who has so much more to them, right? And that holistic understanding of you could be with your close friends. And so if they know you, who you are over years, and they have access to this particular problem area, this particular area related information, then they can give you a more informed opinion, going back to what Conrad was suggesting a moment ago.
Of course. And now, so let's switch over to this screen I have here. And Abby, you should be able to see it at your screen as well. Basically, we have this templates inside our system for living a better life. It's called My Network. It's basically a personal CRM, if you can think of it like that. It helps you keep track of all the meaningful relationships you have in your life. And for the most part, this was like, teachers, mentors, friends, community members, family members, acquaintances, high school friendships, who knows, right? But for the most part, this was very focused on, your professional and I guess personal relationship that are non-romantic. So I thought that it would be really meaningful to add that romantic layer onto the My Network, because I think that there's something to be said here that essentially helps you reflect and transition even people that were your teachers, your mentors, etc. Not transition those, but transition your associates, your friendship circle, and how do you find out if those people can be something more for you in your life? And also, how do you then track people from their whole end-to-end journey, I guess, from first entering your life, and then becoming something more meaningful? By the way, Abby, are you still there? You look a little laggy to me. Oh no, you're just frozen. Oh my gosh. You look like you're frozen. Oh my gosh. That was like very stoic. I love it. And Lindsay, I will show you how we can prioritize. I think this is also something very cool. Because specifically, like, this is something that I personally put in my own network, and I'll talk about it more, but like an affection counter is something that's meaningful to me. I like remembering how much affection I have for someone based on the things that they've done in the past that's helped me resonate with them more, for example. Those are things I would also keep track in my network. But anyway, let's get straight into this. So let's say we have someone coming in and we say, give me a random name, Abby. Give me a name that you a woman's name.
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. All right. Mary Jane. And then let's open it up. So we see that we have something here called new network member, right? And this new network member, actually, let's switch to the big screen now because we're showing something huge. So we have a new network member, right? It's called Mary Jane, but I'm actually going to duplicate this template, and I'm going to make this template new potential relationship. Okay. And now that we have this, we're going to change the relationship to maybe we call this one romance or romantic partner, maybe. And then we're going to put the contact frequency to probably daily, because when you first have a potential relationship, you are talking daily, if not weekly, right? Industry location, that's stuff you can put in later. Organization you can put in later as well. Birthday is fine. Email, that's blah, 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 blah. Fine, all good. And we can hide some of these properties because these don't need to be talked about right now. So let's customize this page a little bit, and let's just hide the days to birthday. We're gonna hide the chat. We're gonna hide the contacts we're also gonna hide Nick's birthday. Notable chats is good. Gifts tracker is also good. Okay. So you can see we already have a lot of very useful things if you want to build a better relationship with someone, right? You already are intentional about remembering, where they work, where they live, their phone number, their birthday, very important, right? Their email, their address, gifts that you've given each other, notable conversations that you've had that help both of you level up your mindset and your life, and maybe even giving sessions that you've been part of together where you have both tried to provide value more to the world. I'll talk about giving sessions more for people that don't know about the reciprocity ring, but that's something for another time. Basically right now, like, we have like a template that already starts asking questions about, like, and this is very basic because this is for like the network as a general whole. So like, what's their skill set, what's their weakness, what's their goals, motivations, likes, biography, what's a quote that describes this person. It helps you already think about this person in a more meaningful way. And again, my opinion on this is writing this stuff down actually is, to me, means that it's something that I'm intentionally putting down. I'm intentionally storing my memory. So my thought process on this is much more valuable to me than just trying to memorize it, because I'm actually writing it down, reflecting on it. I'm adding value to more than just talking and memorizing in my mind. So what I want to talk about here, though, is what's the additional things we're going to add here because they're a potential relationship, right? What are the additional properties that we want to track because this person is going to be part of our, I call it dating pipeline, if you want to call it that, right? But at least in a way that helps us understand more about them. Again, Abby, in the meaningful questions that we have to ask. So Abby, I have a question for you. What are some questions that you would have liked to ask yourself, or you would like someone to have asked you when you were in your relationship, to then wake you up a little bit to the injustices that you may currently feel right now about what happened there?
So I do think there's always two sides of this story, and there might be injustices done on both sides, or perceived injustices done on both sides. But that's an important question on what somebody else could have asked me or what I could have asked myself, I think it would be, what all is most important for me to feel joy or happiness, right? And is it being able to relate to somebody, like intellectually? Is it about the whole concept of language of love, right? Like, you might have heard about it. It's very popular out there today. Some people like gifts, some people like acts of service, some people just want physical touch, some people just want admiration, and acceptance. So if somebody had asked me that question, or if I would have reflected on what I want and then compared that with my relationship and what I'm getting, it would have become very obvious for me that the language of love maybe was very different, right? And then there were a lot of other issues which come into play, but that's a very basic foundation, because if there's a mismatch on that, no matter how great it looks like or how amazing it feels today, it's going to catch up on you, and you need to eventually decide. So if I'll give you a few examples, like what's important for me is being accepted, being loved, being admired for who I am, and just understood on what I want to do, how I want to live my life. I want to create an impact and build something, and leave a legacy before I go. So if somebody is able to relate to that intellectually, and then from a romantic intimacy relationship perspective point of view, I like closeness, so I would appreciate that level of comfort and chemistry with my partner. Now these two things are quite core, and if nobody asked me that question, that how am I doing against whatever my expectation is, or if I did not ask those expectations, I think what you'd see is people find either they're telling themselves a wrong narrative versus what's going on, or they have an unpleasant experience, so they find an escape, right? You don't like this, so you'll create an escape for you. The escape could be you're doing a lot of hobbies, or you're getting over occupied with your work. So you're avoiding the problem, you're not solving the problem, because nobody's asking you the right questions on the real problem, right? Which is growing and growing and growing, and eventually will overpower you. So it's a long answer, but I would have loved to, if somebody would have asked me the question on what's important for me, to be happy in a relationship, and are there signs to say those expectations and needs are being met or not? And if not, am I owning up to them? And am I having a deliberate conversation with my partner early on versus postponing the problem?
So I think that's something very meaningful, right? So I've already distilled 3 questions out for you. It's like, the first one is like, what's important for me to be happy in a relationship, right? I think it's something that you should always ask and always reflect upon. Like, let's say you're 2 years into a relationship with this Mary Jane person. You might be asking, well, I initially came into a relationship wanting to be happy from these influences, right? Maybe we can have like even a toggle here, the dates that we put this in, right? That we put this in, dates. Actually, this would be nice. Let's make a relational database. Let's make a relational database. I'll show you how this looks. This is gonna be really cool. So let's do a table. Let's do a relational database called relationship questions. We're going to make it relate to itself. So we're going to have a relational database here. And then let's do it here. It's going to be a relation. And then we're going to call it the my network. And we're gonna, so many. Which one is it? My passion right here. My network. And then we have that relationship. We're going to filter on making sure that that's going to be something that is only for itself. So we're going to add a filter. We're going to say that the relationship contains this page. And then we're also going to delete this one or change this one to a date property. So this is the created time, and this is a created time. And this will be really interesting, Abby. Keep watching. So, for example, these are the questions that we have for ourselves, right? So let's make them normal text because I think it's fine. So normal text. And then we make all these normal text as well. So we turn into normal text right here. And then we're going to drag it up into here. We're going to delete this. We're going to delete this stuff. So basically the whole idea here is, ooh, what's the date? Okay. So basically, for example, right, I come into here, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just met Mary Jane and I think I'm in love. That's an example, right? And then you're like, okay, so here are the relationship questions I should ask myself. I'm going to drag it down into this database here. Actually, let's duplicate that. So maybe if I left click. No. Anyway, so for example, I drag it down and then this becomes what's important for me to be happy in a relationship. And I asked this question on December 12th, 2020 at 10:56 a.m. I'm going to open it up then from here, and let me just open it up in a new tab so we can just see it bigger. And basically in here, we can start putting all the details that we have about this question, that what is the answer for us at that moment. We're like, okay, well, we want, blah, 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 we want to be loved, valued, accepted, all those different things that we want inside this relationship, right? And this becomes something very meaningful for us to look back upon, because then we can say, well, for example, let's say we had multiple of these questions, right? What's important for me to be happy in a relationship? You can then ask it again the next time you go through this. Maybe it's a year later. You drag it down and like, has the answer changed at all, right? That has become something meaningful that you can then go through and then repeat and repeat and repeat. Another thing that I was thinking about here that again, I think it's going to be really helpful for you to throw me these questions because I think you have a lot of insight about these. But I was thinking like we might have different stages up here. So let's say if I make a template, right? Let me make a template here, a template block. So basically my thought process here is like initiate relationship, let's say, right? And then these would be all the questions you would ask in the beginning stage of a relationship. Okay. And then maybe you'd have questions to ask after you have a difficult fight, right? For example. So let me just show you what I mean. So for example, I'm just initiating a relationship. I want to ask, boom, these 3 questions. I'm going to drag these 3 down into here, and then I'm going to answer the questions like as of this date. Very cool, right? I see you smiling. And then, but then what, so I'm just undo that just to undo that. But then what I can do is then I have questions for the initiation of the relationship. I can put questions I have for the, conflicts in relationship, right? So we can ask myself, the meaningful question is, what would you ask yourself in a conflict? If you're trying to deal with a conflict, what would be something you ask?
That's a difficult one. I think you would ask what exactly happened which did not make you feel good, right?
Okay. So
yeah, what exactly happened, right? That's what you want to know. The second is why does that make you feel so bad, right? Exactly, like does it conflict with your value system? Does it conflict with how you wanted to be treated? Like there are only so many things which drive the way you are feeling in a certain situation. Then the question is it something which is happening now, or is it a problem, or is it an incident, the way we describe it in situations? So incident is something which will happen once. Problem is something which will happen more than once, right? So that's an important one to know, because there's a trend coming along versus something which was a random event. So you would have to know. And then you want to know finally how do you want to proceed? Like what actions you want to take? Would you want to talk immediately, have a conversation, you don't want to avoid that right now and pick it up at the right time, or what exactly is the right course of action given that the conflict has happened.
Yeah, I like that. And let's just keep thinking about more things. So, like, what's the different points of reflection do we want inside this template? Like, when we start one relationship, that's great. Potential conflicts, that's great. You know, when we want to go a deeper stage, like going to marriage, perhaps, right?
No, I have one before that.
Okay, what's
You know,
that?
and that I have is all the magical moments, right? There would be these amazing moments which you'll have in every relationship, and actually those are the anchors of your relationship, because things will go south, like things will become crap, but what are you really investing for that relationship in? It is because you know there were moments when it was absolutely blissful. It was out of this world. You felt the most special person ever. But you don't want to forget that either, right? And if you can ask about those magical moments somehow, what was special? What made you feel special? Why was this extraordinary for you? Then it's going to be helpful later when the time of decision comes on how much you want to invest to keep going or to do something different.
That makes sense. So I'm already seeing like a kind of like a nice holistic path, right? Where it's like, okay, I go from, you know, describing the person, learning more about them, their strengths, weaknesses, desires, likes, you know, interests, all those things that are important for you to get to know someone better. And then you start introspecting, right? You're initiating a relationship. Boom. You're like, okay, if I click this, boom, what's important for me to be happy in a relationship? How does this person make me happy? How does this person make me grow? Like, what are these things? Oh, and also I think, what can I do for this person? I think it's also important to be otherish, right? You have to think about what can I do for this person? So what can I do for this relationship, for this person in our relationship, right?
Yeah, because you have to invest to get the return.
Exactly. And then you talk about magical moments, right? You're on a few dates, you have some magical moments, and then what magical moment happened, what made you feel special, you can reflect on that a bit meaningfully. Then unfortunately you might have some conflicts in relationships, so I like to first think about what I appreciate about the person when I'm in a conflict. I'm like, okay, doesn't matter how mad I am right now, what's one thing I can think about that I appreciate about them right now? So
yeah,
that,
right. Reasons. Yeah.
so that helps me calm a bit down, right? And then I think about the problem. Is it a problem or is it an incident, right? What happened, right? And then that could be something that we can reflect upon in the future. And then we can see, well, we had these multiple things that made me, you know, so out of my mind that I had to go write it down. So obviously it's a problem now. It's not just an incident, right? So that helps you go again and again and again and reflect and reflect and reflect. The next thing is going deeper. Going deeper would be, you know, if you want to pursue marriage, if you want to pursue, you know, a deeper romantic relationship, you know, what would you ask there? Like, what do you wish you asked before you went into a deeper relationship?
You know, I've been there, so okay. I didn't ask myself any questions, Conrad. Like, I went with the feeling, and that's why where I ended up where I ended up. I think the question should have been, and this goes back to answer Lindsay's question earlier about outsourcing some of the things or balancing some of the things, like she made a comment long ago, which is, what are the different things important for me? So the question I should have asked was, for a partnership, for my romantic partnership to be successful with somebody, what are the different kinds of connections which are important to me, and in what priority order? So I'll give you an example. For me, intellectual partnership is the highest priority now. So they need to be on the same wavelength. You need to be able to talk to them and resonate about every idea in every conversation. That's all that matters in the long run of life, right? If you are thinking differently, thinking at different speeds, or you have different vectors, one or the other person will drag the other person down, right? and it's not pleasant at all. Everyday conversation should feel meaningful, right? So that for me is the most important. And that question I should have asked: what all is important and in what priority order? So for me, intellectual is the most important. Um, the second for me was emotional, and third for me was physical. So emotional was what matters to me, what all do I care about, like what makes me smile, like who are the people, what are the things, what are the value systems, and does the other person understand it, relate to it, and are there things which are common or are very different? So that's emotional. And third is generally, how do I want to be loved physically, and how much intimacy do I need, and is it similar or is it very different from what the other person needs? And it's going to be important success, criteria over time. Now, how I wanted to relate it back to Lindsay's question was, there could be a chance that nobody's perfect. You're not going to find someone who's meeting like 100% score on all of these three
I think
criteria.
if you even find 80, you're a very lucky person. Let's just say
You are a
that.
very nice person. Yeah, I think I'll go with 75,
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, there must be something in the relationship which really empowers it. So somebody might not be as smart as you intellectually. Like Conrad, it's difficult to beat your intelligence, But
Well, thank you. I think.
but you know, but they might just care about you. They might take care of you. They might just know what you want in life and care about your emotions and how you think about your family and your friends and your cox3 community and how you want to grow it. And even that part, which is so strong, it can overpower the lack in the different area. But it has to be intentional. You need to know, what is it that is so special, because of which you are taking a different measure, right? It's obviously extremely lucky if you get all three. But even if not, if you know why you are there and why it at least is one of the very important things of what you wanted, then it will keep you going because your reasons are clear.
No, I think that's very meaningful, and I want to say like prioritization is not to say scary, but it's hard, and I want to explain why I believe that. Prioritization is really tough because it's like then you're deciding like what matters more in your life, and that's true. You should, but then I have a weird or a hard time, I guess, figuring out what you should prioritize for, because the thing is, when you have something, you don't value it. When you're missing something, you value it a whole lot more. So like in your example, right, let's say you are with someone that is intellectually smart but yet distance emotionally, then you'd want someone who's emotionally loving, like, oh, you're so smart, I can talk to you about everything, but damn it, why don't you love me? Like you have those kind of feelings, right? And then if it was the other way around,
I'm loving too, Conrad. I think you don't classify. Please pick a random person and don't classify him in those buckets.
no, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I just think, like, when you're actually in the thick of things in a relationship, when you start getting closer to someone and you start realizing that they're not to say lacking, I think lacking is a very bad word, but like at least not up to your expectation in some various parts of their personality or the way they behave, it's very difficult for you to look past that in a way and then be like, oh, it's okay that they're not this because I have other people that fulfill that. Like, I'm just trying to think about how there could be a more holistic way or a more gentle way perhaps to help you understand that like nobody's perfect, and nobody should be perfect, by the way, but how can you get closer to that, at least in terms of like what you are comfortable with, what you want to accept, and what you are looking for inside that kind of relationship. So I think that's something that I'm thinking about.
Can I add something there?
Please.
So no, I hear you and I agree. Something which is missing will something exactly what will haunt you, right? And you're like, oh my God, this is what I'm missing. And then how can I be here and still be happy? So I think, as you said, nobody is perfect. We are not either. But in each of those things which are important to you, there is one beating expectation, one is meeting expectation. So there is a bare minimum you expect in each of those areas, right? So you need to know what's your bare minimum, and in some ways your walking away point, right? So any of those things bare minimum are not met in those criteria, it's a red flag. The system will boil and burst. You need to walk out and vacate the nuclear reactor right now, right? So that's a done. But it could be that your aspirational goal is higher in each of those categories, right?
Yeah.
And you might not meet the aspirational goal in all three categories with the partner you are in with, which is fine. But being aware about the difference is important.
I think so too. Yeah. And Dean has a really good point. I do want to say, like, again, going with our theme here at Coix 3, we're always about trying to, like, again, not to say over engineer, but like try to analyze as much as we can the things that can be analyzed and explore what can be controlled and what cannot be controlled. I think, like, there is something definitely to be said about, like, non-sensual relationships where, conversations comes free and easy. You're just enjoying each other's company. But the thing that always sits in the back of my mind is that, how much of that is infatuation, right? How much of that is going to last like a long and meaningful 5, 10, 15, 50-year relationship? And why do I enjoy those moments, right? What about the other person is making me so happy and so appreciative and so I guess resonating with that person? And if I can pinpoint that down, Dean, the really interesting thing is that I believe will unlock the secret to happiness for yourself, right? And again, like, this is something that I think many movies have been talking about, this pursuit of happiness, right? Will Smith. Like, there's a lot of different people, smarter people than me and Abby, I'm sure, that have tried to fix this problem and say, oh, how can I determine what is my happiness, and how can I determine, how can I grab hold of it and never let go, right? Something like that. But I think the interesting thing is that if we don't spend the time to look into the happy moments in our lives and try to figure out what exactly made them so happy and joyous, we may be depriving ourselves of an opportunity to figure out what makes us truly happy. And that's where I'm trying to go with this. Again, if you are a person that feels like you don't need to overanalyze anything because you're scared that the second that you overanalyze will leave, the feeling will be gone, that's fine. You do you. I'm just trying to share one way that I perhaps think about how I had been living life previously, which was in that nonsensical way, right? I let things go as they go. But yet now here I am today, where I don't know what really makes me happy. I don't know who makes me happy. I don't know how I can be happy for a long term. So these are things that hopefully will build towards that journey. And Abby, I know you want to say something. You've been itching to scream.
No, I agree with everything you said, and I believe that we have to be very clear on what we are trying to do here. It's not about talking and sharing things which went wrong. No, it's not about that. It could also be about you journaling and figuring out all the things you liked, all the beautiful, magical, amazing, joyous moments. And imagine you feeling sad at some point of time in your life, and you just come back and you say, these were all the amazing moments my life was built on, right? And you have access to yourself from the past when you were so happy, and how uplifting it could be to know that you have had the opportunity and you're blessed enough to have experienced all of those things. So it can be used in any way. It can really be as your savior when life hits you in bad ways, wherever that might hit you from. And it can be used in all those ways, and you have to do you. As Conrad said, you don't really have to follow a certain schedule or write a certain amount of detail. Like, whatever works for you. I mean, do what makes you feel better. It's for you.
100%. Wise words, Abby. And I want to also add value onto what you just shared there, because I think it's so meaningful in the fact that, like, someday you're going to go into your life and you're going to be like, I feel alone. I feel lonely, right? And we all do. There's no shame about that. Sometimes we feel like nobody understands us, nobody gets us, nobody sees life the way we see it, right? So we're like, okay, so who in our lives are actually meaningful to us? How many mentors do I have? How many teachers? How many friends, family, acquaintances, romantic partners now, right? Who is in my life, right? And when did I last talk to them? Am I lonely because I didn't reach out to them? Or am I lonely because I don't have anybody here? And again, if that is the case, I'm not shaming you at all. I'm saying that this is also how you can start building up those kind of relationships, right? You start figuring out, hey, the people in my social circle right now are toxic, or they don't appreciate me for me, or I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around them. That can change, right? This is a really big step forward in saying, hey, who in my life is treating me well, and how can I treat them well as well? And and then going through and saying, okay, well, if I like these people in my life, and let's add that affection rating. I think that's something very meaningful, right? So let's say we have an affection score, and again, this is just something fun I put. It doesn't have to mean anything, and hopefully your friends are growth minded enough that they don't get offended that they don't have like 5 hearts versus like 4 hearts, whatever. Like obviously this is something for you to consider if your friends, what kind of people your friends are. But let's say we have affection scores, right? So
you don't have to show it to them, right?
You don't have to show it to them.
It's for you. It's for you.
It's for you to reflect and to understand and to care about people more, right? So you have your 5 scores of affection, and maybe we'll make them, default gray color so they stand out a bit more. And just do that, do that, do that, and do that. So basically now we have, an affection score, right? And you could be like, okay, well, this mentor, I have an affection score of 3, right? And maybe this teacher, helped me a lot, I have a score of 4, and, et cetera, et cetera. And now you can also see like how people kind of have given you love throughout your life and how much you love them, perhaps, right? And then the really cool thing here is like, well, now it's like, let's say you put yourself into the mindset where like, oh, nobody gets me, nobody understands me, and then you go into here and you say, well, no, I've had so many notable and memorable conversations with so many people in my life. I can look through them. I can see what I discussed with them. I can learn from my past. Again, my past is speaking to my future, right? I can see all the notes that I took down about that conversation, about life, about anything that I previously had reflected upon that are somehow forgotten, or in my depression, right? That I forgot and I put aside, and this is the time to pick it back up. Maybe you're someone that your love language is physical acts of gifts, right? Well, then look at your gift tracker, see who gave you things and who did you give things to, right? You can see all the different joyous physical things that were provided to you by people that arguably you care about enough to put inside your My Network, right? And also people that care about enough about you to send you something in the first place. And then finally, now we have relationship questions. You can now ask yourself, hey, well, you can see all the different musings you've ever had about what's important for me to be happy in a relationship. What are things that are intense positive moments, right? Intense wow moments, and also things that are intense sad moments, and what can you learn from them, right? And you can see from the time that you reflected all the way until now. I mean, how much more meaningful can this be? I honestly think there's a lot of value to get from here.
I feel more inspired than ever before, Conrad, coming out of this hour and a half. Honestly, this can be life-changing, even for me personally. There's so many parallels, and I can share one or two if if helpful. One is I have written a lot of journals over time, over years, but I've lost track of all of that. I've not both happy and sad moments, and our ability to bring and see all of that together without needing to close my eyes and think for 2 hours is going to be extremely uplifting, I think. And I just loved what you said right now on the affection scoring. Somebody might say that, this is over engineering. Like you're putting 5 hearts against a person, like a person is a heart. Like, is it really, okay for you to do that? I don't think so. I think it's something different we are trying to do here, which is every day and in our life journey, you'll come across both kinds of people who you're going to relate to who will make you feel good, people who are not going to make you feel good. The issue really is that because we are not intentional, we are not spending time and we're not keeping track of the people who made us feel inspired, made us feel loved, made us feel good. So this helps us filter the people who came on our journey, who really had a positive impact on our life, and makes a very easy way of us to filter them, to figure out how do we spend time with them to bring positivity in our lives, right? I mean, you are the average of the top 5 people you spend your time with. And if you choose to spend time with your 5-star people, you're going to end up feeling very loved end of the day. But you have to spend time, right? Which we are not doing today. We are spending time with people who by default life throws our way day in, day out, and not going after the people who we need and we know they're good for us because we felt that way and we have documented our feelings about them.
Well said, Abby. And I think to wrap this all up, let's try to go through a scenario with fictional Mary Jane and see how it works. I mean, I'm excited. I think this is really cool. And I think we should have one more quick question about going deeper. What would be another question you wish was asked before you went deeper into your marriage and your relationship? Yeah. I think something about their parents too, but yeah, usually people are like, oh, how does their family structure like, when I'm being with someone, like, do I like the people around them, things like that. I mean, there's something that came to my mind.
Because we are talking about, long-term committed relationships, it's important to understand their context. Now, the context could be, their upbringing, what kind of experiences they had, how they were groomed, and all of that makes them who they are, right? So who they are because of the context they had behind them and where they want to go, right? Because that's their North Star they're trying to follow. So those two things are so vital, apart from what you're feeling with that person, which could be amazing intellectually, physically, emotionally. But your understanding and spending time on the other deeper question, I think, would be important as well.
I think one more big question is, why do I want to be with this person? And I think if you can't answer why, you have a problem there. So I think the why is important. Yeah, and Shakri, Mary Jane, since we're going to movie references right now, I guess Spider-Man, right? All right, guys. So let's try. This is fun, right? So we go into my network. We type in, we just met Mary Jane today, perhaps, right? We're like, oh my gosh, Mary Jane, amazing. It's a new potential relationship. So we click on that. Automatically auto-generates a lot of stuff that is going to help us fill out this profile, right? And understand this person more. And if it loads, because I'm a bit laggy right now, give me a quick second, open up again. Perfect. And maybe we can start putting in. We last contacted her today, let's say. Industry she works for. I mean, anything. Just give me something. Give me a fictional Mary Jane. Oh, actually, let's follow the Mary Jane in the movie. What was she? What was her profession? She was in theater, right? Theater. All right. This is lovely, actually. We should do more movie references. Theater. She was in New York, I believe.
Yes.
New York. Organization.
Broadway.
Broadway. Awesome. Her birthday was, I'm just gonna make it fictional. I think she was around 25 or like something around that, right?
Yeah.
So let's just
1995.
1995. Let's just say her birthday's coming up let's say end of the year.
How lucky.
How lucky. So 24 years old, 19 days until their next birthday. Amazing. Phone number, whatever, email, whatever, address, whatever. Okay. Affection score right now, I'm feeling maybe it's a 2. Again, has to be realistic, right? You just met this person. You're not feeling a 5 for them. No matter how infatuated you are, you have to have...
You should not be feeling 5.
You should not be feeling a 5 for them, right? You should be like a 1. You should build up, okay?
Yeah.
Right. And this is one more thing. This is relationship journal. Awesome. So a quote that describes this person, maybe, you know, what will be a quote? Oh, this is hard. Anybody in the chat want to give us a quote that describes Mary Jane? I'll let you guys find that out. We'll go on. But anybody in the chat, you guys figure that out. Yeah, but the whole idea is that we go in, we'll be like, what's their skill set? What's their weakness? What's their goals, motivation? So, by the way, I haven't explained this enough, but like why this is important. Yeah.
Her smile brightens up the world, you know.
Her smile brightens up the world. All right, amazing. Yeah, so why the biography part is she's hot. That's my Shakri. Oh my gosh. Not this kind of stream. No, like, so basically the biography is like helping you understand that person. Again, this is something that I personally feel. Again, I don't like to speak for other people. I'm just speaking for myself. It's like sometimes in conversations, you can walk out where you don't even remember anything meaningful about the other person. We can have like a 2-hour conversation, but somehow after the conversation, you just don't remember. And I really wanted to fix that problem for myself. So I was like, okay, so when I'm going to a conversation, how can I be the most intentional about remembering things that they care about? You know, what are their motivations in life? What are their goals? What do they like? How can I remember that by writing it down so that in the future, whenever we have another conversation, I can reference those things because I now have brought them to a stage in my life where I believe that everything that about them is something that I need to know, and I need to remember to be an effective and I guess an empathetic person to help their journey in life as well. So obviously this is not part of what we're going to talk about today, so I'm just going to hide that, and we're going to go into relationship questions, right? We're going to say, well, we just met this person, so we're just initiating the relationship. So I'm going to ask myself really quickly, you know, and let's drag everything in and let's ask all these questions, right? So we put it in, boom, instantly. These are our journal entries, right? You can think about it like that. Whoops, didn't want to click that. These are our journal entries. So I'm going to open this up into like a bigger page so we can see it in true detail. Give it a second to load. But basically the whole idea is that we want to answer these questions in succession. So we're not pursuing this relationship with the wrong interest in mind. And this is just to save ourselves, really, right? It's not to save anybody else. We're trying to save ourselves. So for example, let's wrap these cells so we can read this better. So what's important for me to be happy in a relationship, right? Maybe we can say, Abby, you have anything you want to add here? I can think of some things as well.
Oh, you go for it.
Okay, so what's important for me to be happy? I want someone that can listen to me and share in my successes and let's see, share my successes and grow together. Okay, for example. And obviously that's very vague, so knowing that that's vague, how can we make that more detailed, right? That's something for you to think about. I added like a feelings column just so that you might want to think about like what are some feelings that you have about this question or about her right now. Like what's the bubbly feelings that you're currently feeling right now that's like, okay, maybe she's the one, right? So for example, I can add something like, I'm feeling happy or joyous, when I'm writing this, I'm already feeling happy because I'm optimistic. So maybe optimistic is a good one too, right? Optimistic, right? How does this person make me happy, right? She makes me smile. I like it when she talks about X and Y, right? How does this person help make me grow? Well, again, in this context, like, I know nothing about Broadway and theater, so I will learn to be more expressive, right? Maybe. And what can I do for this person in a relationship? Well, maybe, she is very interested in learning about growth mindsets, and I can share that with her, just as an example. So then you can keep adding feelings. Again, I'm rethinking the feelings column a little bit. I think it's going to be useful in some context. Right now, I'm still having a bit of trouble thinking about how to use this.
I think,
Yeah, go on.
I think it's an important one. It might not be question specific. It would be for that session. You have an overall feeling of feeling happy or optimistic in that session. So you can just have it at an overall entry level.
Okay.
Rather than by question.
I like that. So I might just drag that and copy it on. Yeah. Awesome. So this was day one, right? This is day one, December 12th, 2020, and then you remember these things. You remember that you went here and you added these comments and you made this meaningful for you. And then you can go, it's like, oh, then what are the magical moments? Like, you started having a magical moment, right? And then you want to document it. You're home, you just got home, and then you just had an amazing date with her or him, whoever you want. And you're like, okay, what magical moment happened? Well, you can go, we were on the veranda and, sparks happened, whatever. Let's not go into too much detail here. But yes, so the whole idea is that, you can then document it, right? And how do you make you feel? You were excited, right? You probably were nervous, right? Nervous. And, you were able to document those things. And again, like, you can see immediately on my network, you can see that it's already starting to fill up here. And let me just refresh because I'm a bit laggy because I'm streaming. But once we start loading up my network, you'll be able to see that this stuff is already being captured. And again, if you had more information about past relationships or maybe on other people that you're currently casually seeing, then maybe this will help you kind of have a more objective view about the people in your life that you are evaluating romantically, right? So you can see, like, these are all the people in the relationship of Mary Jane. Let's make sure that this is showing. So we haven't done this filter yet. So this needs to be filtered by Mary Jane. So let me just add initial relational category. No, we don't need to do that. We already have that. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete that. We're going to show the property of the relationship. We're going to add the Mary Jane as here. And we're going to copy and we're going to paste. And normally you don't have to do that whole step. It's just that because we didn't have that in the template. So I'll update the template after this. But basically, now they're all populate here. You can see which relationship is the one that you're currently talking about for the magical moments and everything. You can see it's all populated. And then later on, you can even filter, right? Who made me feel the most happy, the most optimistic? Who made me feel the most sad? How many sad feelings did I have in this relationship, right? And again, it might just be documentary bias because you're just documenting the sad things or the happy things more. But at least it gives you some more valuable data points that you previously wouldn't have. I think that's the most important thing that we're discussing here. And just to finish this, this reflection more, right? We can talk about, conflicts in relationship, right? You might have a conflict, and before you get into the conflict, you want to talk about, what do I appreciate about this person, right? Before you, let me show you actually. If I had a filter here, so if I had a filter here for relationship with Mary Jane, contains Mary Jane, then automatically, if I just drag this in, this will become filtered by Mary Jane, like that. So I can just hide this property now. It's not so important. and I can now add more information, right? So what I appreciate this about this person, you know, she's very intellectually stimulating, which actually could be a snarky remark. This could be a very smart, very snarky remark. It's like, oh yeah, very intellectually stimulating. And then, you know, this is like, you know, maybe you're like frustrated. Yeah, you're like, she is intellectually stimulating, but I'm so frustrated about that, right? You know, maybe she's a lawyer and giving you the runaround. And what happened? You know, is it a problem or today? Talk about, you know, we had an argument about X, Y.
Confidentiality, my friend, confidentiality.
Yeah, we had an argument about X, Y, and Z, right? And then that's something that you can talk about. And this was something that, you know, made me like angry, perhaps, right? And again, all this stuff is then saved inside your main network page. And again, the whole idea about this is that we don't want to force you to add anything. It's more about like what are meaningful points of reflection for you. Like what's something that you believe is a place where you don't think about enough, right? You just don't spend enough time to reflect on, you know, whether it be the happy moments, the sad moments, the initial relationship, pursuing, dating, puppy love phase, or the marriage phase. Maybe you jump into deeper commitments really easily, or the moving in phase, right? Going deeper might also involve moving in. It's just for you to figure out exactly where you believe you are currently not being intentional enough, and how can you go and be intentional in the ways that you need to be intentional. So yeah, any last comments, or not last comments, but any questions from the chat, as well as, you know, maybe even questions from Abby. Let's have a discussion now. We've built this a little bit, right? We've built at least the structure of it. Everybody can add more, and I'm sure everybody will add more, right? If you're part of the Coix3 community, this template's open for you to add more details. We want to get all your insights, your best questions that you want to ask, because we believe that it will make this process a lot better. It will make it, again, not just useful for me and Abby, which are two guys in the whole wide world, but rather interesting and useful for all of you guys, which are thousands of people across, you know, 100 different countries. Yeah, Abby, any comments?
No, I love it. I love it. And I am inspired to see how quickly and easily you were able to build it. I think on Notion, while we were doing this live streams, absolutely amazed me and inspired me to learn this and hopefully continue to build things on it. And also, as you were doing this, conversation and reflection, I figured out all the bottlenecks I face in my life where I have had moments, relationships, journals, and all of that entail. I have to pause and think hard to ensure that I think about all the things objectively and bring back all the memories. And it's very hard. It's very hard to be able to recollect this. So as much as I'm never in favor of over engineering, I think there is a great deal of value where this kind of structure will help us reflect on the right feelings and thoughts and memories in the right way, and will make our lives more fulfilling. So thank you. I just want to thank you for thinking of this and appreciate me allowing me to be part of the journey as we are building this.
Of course. And I think, Abby, just to go into a bit of a story time, right, with the community, I think at this point I kind of believe in serendipity. Obviously I used to say that as like a joke. Oh, coincidences, aren't real, and things happen for a reason. I used to say that. I still do believe that. But what I mean now is that, like, over the past year, like, things have just been falling into place so beautifully well that I can't even begin to express how many times I've had that feeling of, like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one feeling a certain way, right? I'm not alone in this world. I think that's the most important realization that we get. And there's other people that are trying to solve this problem, perhaps from a very different angle, that hopefully can then add value to the way that I'm thinking about this problem. So the thing I love about our house, and I think that you've expressed this too, right, is that we have these kind of meaningful conversations so often that it gives us a really good opportunity to share with one another our different viewpoints on life, and then explore together on how we can provide value to ourselves, to each other, and then to the world. How can we extrapolate, the individual problems that we all face every day in our daily wars, in our weekly wars, in our monthly wars, to distill it down into a problem that has a simple solution, simple yet elegant solution. And I'm also just so appreciative of having you here in the house and having the whole community here as well, right? Listening in, building together with us, sharing their knowledge, asking questions, right? Because asking questions is the best indicator that someone's listening. And knowing that, other people care about this too. That to me is incredibly serendipitous. And I can't even begin to appreciate that as I should.
Thank you.
Amazing,
Thank
guys. Well, that's it for the stream. We are going to try and post a highlight of the stream at the end of this, probably by tomorrow, our Sunday, probably your Saturday evening or your Sunday as well, to hopefully help people that haven't been able to sit through like a 2-hour, live stream, to be able to still learn from us and get like a distilled, digested version of our content, where we're cutting it down to the main points. And obviously, if you want to learn how it all gets built, you should watch the whole thing. Like all you lovely viewers right now, we've had very consistent viewership. Thank you for that. But we do want to make it easier and easier for everyone to learn from us and for us to learn from you, because the more people that know about what we've talked about today, the more people that can participate in the building of this amazing relationship journal. Thank you, guys. That's it from me. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. If you're in Asia like me, have a good rest of your Saturday. If you're in North America, just beginning your weekend on a Friday evening, have a good night. Please take care. And remember, be intentional.